The Aksumite Empire had a secret that changed everything and was buried, * 899 words, saved at home/jarvisadmin/Aksum script draft, txt. In 330 AD, an African king was baptized a Christian, decades before Rome ever was. You were never taught his empire rivaled Rome, Persia, and China. There's a reason, and the reason his name vanished from your textbook is darker than the empire he built. His name was Ezana. His empire was Aksum, modern-day Ethiopia and Eritrea, but bigger, a superpower that stretched across the Red Sea into Arabia. This wasn't a village kingdom. This was one of the 4 great powers on Earth, not our ranking. Theirs. A 3rd-century Persian prophet named Mani listed the 4 kingdoms that mattered in the entire world. Rome, Persia, China, and Aksum, nobody argued. Aksum minted its own gold coinage, one of the only powers on the planet doing that. It ran its own written language, Ge'ez, still used in Ethiopian liturgy today. It controlled the ivory, gold, and spice routes between Africa, Rome, and India. Somewhere in its capital right now sits a granite obelisk taller than anything the Romans ever quarried in one piece. Here's the strange, documented fact nobody puts in the timeline next to Constantine. King Ezana converted his empire to Christianity in 330 AD. Constantine, the Roman emperor everyone credits with bringing Christianity to the world. His empire didn't make Christianity the state religion until 380 AD, 50 years later. An African kingdom beat Rome to it. Aksum built stone churches while Rome was still debating. Coins from Aksum are the first in the ancient world to carry the cross as a national symbol, earlier than any Roman coin. This isn't a fringe theory. It's stamped in gold, sitting in museum drawers, cataloged and dated, and it barely gets a footnote, and it gets stranger. The obelisks of Aksum, some over 100 feet tall, carved from single blocks of stone, engraved to mimic multi-story buildings with fake doors and windows, required engineering nobody has fully reverse-engineered. One toppled steel over 500 tons remains the largest single stone ever quarried and erected by any ancient civilization, larger than anything at Karnak, larger than anything Rome moved. Italy stole one of them in 1937, and it sat in Rome for almost 70 years before anyone forced it back. The Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion in the heart of Aksum is guarded to this day by a single monk who never leaves the building because Ethiopian tradition holds that the Ark of the Covenant itself has rested there since antiquity. Nobody is allowed to see it, not archaeologists, not kings. One man, one room for life. And that's not even the strangest part of what happened to this empire, but here's what doesn't add up. If Aksum was ranked with Rome, Persia, and China by its own contemporaries, if it had currency, cathedrals, and monuments before most of Europe had any of the 3, why does it get less classroom time than the fall of a single Roman legion? Why does the ancient world, in most textbooks, mean Mediterranean and Near East full stop, as if Africa went quiet for 1,000 years between Egypt and colonization? Aksum didn't hide. It traded with Byzantium. It's named in Roman records, Persian records, Indian records. It wasn't lost. It was left out. The buried why isn't a conspiracy in smoke-filled rooms. It's older and quieter than that. When European scholars built the modern framework of world history in the 1700s and 1800s, they built it to justify what colonialism was doing in real time. A history where Africa produced empires that outdated and outbuilt Europe's own Christian foundation didn't fit the story being sold to justify carving up that same continent. So the framework simply rooted around Aksum, not erased in one order, filtered out, generation after generation, by textbook authors who inherited a map of who matters from the people before them, a map drawn during the exact century Europe needed Africa to look empty. Ezana's baptism, 50 years ahead of Rome's, is inconvenient to a story where Christianity is something Europe gave the world instead of something Africa reached first. Once that framing calcified into curriculum, nobody had to suppress Aksum again. It just kept falling out of every next textbook quietly by default. So ask yourself what else got filtered out by that same default. If one of the 4 great powers on Earth, confirmed by their own contemporaries, stamped on their own coins, can vanish from a syllabus without a single order to erase it, what does that say about everything else labeled the ancient world in the book you were handed? Every cradle of civilization, map you've ever seen was drawn by the same hands that needed Aksum left off it. And if a 50-year head start on Christianity itself can get quietly dropped from the record, what does that say about the empires with no coins, no cathedrals, no stone left standing to argue back? How many other names got rooted around the same way, by the same century, for the same reason? That monk is still in that room. Nobody's checked in over 1,000 years. Nobody's saying why they're allowed to keep it that way. And nobody's explained why the empire that beat Rome to the cross got left off the map Rome is still teaching you.